Chosen one, you are dangerously behind. God said that, and there is a difference between that word coming from him and the same word coming from the voice that has been condemning you. The condemning voice says behind is the verdict. God says behind is the current coordinates. One is a sentence, the other is a navigation update. He said drop everything. Right now, not as discipline, as direction. Because from where he stands, he can see what is building toward your life, and he can also see the single thing standing between you and it. Something that is invisible from where you are, but the most consequential thing you could address in the next few minutes. This is not a message designed to encourage you to run harder. God is not here to motivate your effort on a timeline that was never yours. He is here to show you something about your season, your formation, your position, that changes not just how you feel about where you are, but where you actually are. A higher intelligence placed this in your path today with precision, not chance. The window you feared was closing, it just opened. And what you are about to receive has the power to do one specific thing: dismantle the framework underneath the pain entirely. Before we go any further, I want to ask something of you. Whatever else is competing for your attention right now, set it aside. If you are around other people, give yourself this. Step away from them for a few minutes. What God wants to speak in this message is not for a crowd, it is for you. So give yourself your full presence, nothing more than that. Take one real breath, in and out. Now, before we begin, I want to tell you exactly what you are going to receive if you stay until the very end of this message. You are going to understand, clearly and specifically, why the season you have been in has a name and a purpose that most people who carry it never discover. You are going to see a pattern that God has been using for thousands of years with every chosen one he positioned for something extraordinary, and you are going to recognize yourself inside it. I am going to give you a 3-step protocol you can begin applying today, one that does not require you to run harder, only to align differently. And at the very close of this message, I am going to speak a declaration over your life that I believe was placed here before you arrived. Do not leave before that moment. Also, at a certain point in this message, I will mention one specific tool that thousands of chosen ones have used to accelerate exactly what we are about to discuss. You do not need it to receive what God has prepared for you here, but you will want to know it exists. Now let me show you something. Let me place you somewhere specific first. It is 2 in the morning, the room is dark and the house is quiet, but your mind is the loudest it has been all day. You have been lying there for a while now, and sleep has left without explanation and morning has not arrived yet. And in that specific silence, everything you have not resolved and not said and not figured out begins to press down. Not loudly, quietly. The way pressure that has been accumulating over a long season eventually makes itself known when there is nothing left to drown it out. Maybe that was last week for you. Maybe it was last night. The hour does not matter. The feeling does. And if you know that feeling, you know exactly the weight we are talking about in this message. Now here is something that most people who carry that weight do not know. There are 2 Greek words for time. Most people only ever encounter one of them. The first is chronos. Chronos is the clock. It is the sequential, measurable, comparative timeline that tells you how long things are taking and how far back you are compared to everyone around you. Chronos is the number of years that have passed. Chronos is the age you are now versus the age you thought you would be when certain things were supposed to happen. Chronos is the clock you have been checking every time you feel behind. But there is a second word, kairos. And kairos does not measure sequence. Kairos measures readiness. Kairos is not a point on a line. Kairos is a quality of moment. A moment when everything that needed to be in place finally is, and what has been forming in the darkness can finally break through. And the critical thing about Kairos is this: you can be dangerously behind on Chronos and perfectly on time on Kairos, And those two facts can coexist completely. They do not cancel each other out. They can both be true at the same time. God does not operate on chronos. He operates on kairos. And what that means for you is that the clock you have been using to measure how far behind you are was never the right instrument for where you actually stand. That is not a comfort. That is a recalibration. Before I tell you what that means for your situation specifically, I want you to recognize something first. There are signs that appear in a person's life when they are in a kairos transition, not a chronos transition, kairos. And I want to name them because recognizing them is the first thing that has to happen before anything else can. The first sign is a specific kind of tiredness, not the kind that comes from doing too much. This tiredness does not respond to rest the way ordinary tiredness does. You sleep and wake up still carrying it. It sits in the bones rather than the muscles, and it is not illness, and it is not burnout in the traditional sense. It is your spirit processing a weight it was never designed to carry alone, and that is not decline. That is your kairos clock. The second sign is the way the same window of the night keeps finding you, the same hour, the same quiet, uninvited alertness where you wake, and the house is still, and something in you is very much awake, and you cannot explain exactly why. You are not anxious, not worried about something specific, just awake, aware. And that is not insomnia. That is kairos making contact in the only way it can reach you through the noise of the day. The third sign is the way old environments have started to feel different. Rooms you have been in 100 times, routines that once gave you structure, even relationships that felt comfortable for years now carry a subtle tension. Not wrong, exactly, just different, a little tight, a little foreign. And you have been wondering whether something is wrong with you for feeling that way. Nothing is wrong. That is kairos repositioning. The old container is no longer the right size for what you are becoming. The fourth sign is this. Your thoughts are loudest in the quietest moments. When the noise of the day stops, something louder begins inside. And the thoughts that arrive in that silence are not random. They circle the same territory, the same unresolved awareness, the same quiet knowing that something is not fully aligned with where you are supposed to be. That is not anxiety, though it can feel like it. That is something deeper trying to tell you something important. And the fifth sign is something you may have noticed and dismissed as coincidence. The same phrase, the same word, the same concept, appearing from completely unrelated directions within a short window of time. Something you had not heard in years showing up 3 times in 3 days from 3 different sources. You are not imagining it. That is not coincidence. That is kairos precision. The language of a God who is trying to reach a specific person at a specific moment with a specific word. If you recognized yourself in any of those signs, hear this. You are not falling apart. You are being assembled. Recognizing the signs is the first layer. What they are pointing toward, that is where we are going next. But before we do, I need to pause here for a moment. You have been carrying something heavier than you have admitted out loud to anyone. And the signs we just named, you recognized them. You did not have to think hard about whether they applied. That recognition is not nothing. That is the spirit in you responding to a truth it already knew. Take a breath before we continue. Nothing to receive right now, nothing to do, just breathe. Good. Now let me show you something about where this recognition comes from. Kairos is not just a concept, it has a face, it has a story. And the story that most clearly shows what dangerously behind looks like, from God's perspective, has been told for thousands of years, and most people still miss the real lesson in it. The prophet Samuel arrives at the house of Jesse. He has come because God told him the next king is in this family. Jesse lines up his sons. The oldest, Eliab, steps forward, tall, impressive, the obvious human choice. Samuel looks at him and is ready to act. And God says something Samuel does not expect. He says, "Do not look at his height or his appearance. Man looks at the outward appearance. God looks at the heart. So Samuel moves to the next son, then the next. 7 sons pass before the prophet. 7 times the same answer from God. Not this one, not this one. And then Samuel asks, "Are all your sons here?" Jesse pauses before he answers. That pause matters, because what it tells us is that David was so far outside the category of possible in his own father's mind that Jesse did not automatically include him when the prophet asked. His own father overlooked him. David was in the field with the sheep, doing invisible work that no one was watching, while his brothers stood in the house before the prophet of God. When Jesse finally answers, he says, "There is still the youngest, but he is with the animals." And Samuel says, "Send for him. We will not sit down until he arrives." The ceremony of anointing comes to a complete stop for the one who was behind. The prophet waits, the brothers wait, for the one in the field. The anointing did not wait for David to position himself. It went looking for him, exactly where he was. Now let me ask you something. What was David doing in that field during all those years that his brothers were not doing? He was fighting lions and bears with no audience. When a predator came against the flock, there was no one watching, no record kept, no one to applaud after. He fought and won, and went back to work, and no one ever knew. Courage that forms without recognition is a different quality entirely from courage that forms under applause. He was also writing in that field. The Psalms were not composed in the palace. They were written in the pasture. The depth of relationship he built with God was formed during the very years that looked, from the outside, like nothing was happening. And the mind that developed in that season, free from the noise of comparison, free from the pressure of being publicly measured, learning without the static of performance expectation, a neuroscientist would call that a youthful brain. A mind operating at full capacity precisely because the things that diminish that capacity were absent. The field preserved what exposure would have taken too soon. The season you have been in, the one that looked like being left behind while others moved ahead, was not the delay before the formation. It was the formation itself. What David carried into the palace was built entirely in the pasture. And the palace could not have held him if the pasture had not shaped him first. But here is something I need to address directly, because it is probably stirring in you right now. Something in you has been arguing against the field. A voice that says the formation should be finished by now, that you have waited long enough, that if this were real, it would have arrived by now, and that the fact that it has not is beginning to feel like the most honest evidence you have. That voice is not wrong that it is time. It is wrong about the mechanism. It keeps pointing you toward performance when God keeps directing you toward presence. It tells you to get louder when God is asking you to go deeper. And there is a detail in the David story that speaks to this directly. We will get to it. But first, let me briefly share something. Let me step outside the message for just a moment. Earlier I mentioned there is one tool I will come back to in detail. I want to give you a little more now, because what comes next in this revelation gives it its full meaning. There is a neuroscientist who spent 34 years studying one specific thing, a brainwave pattern that every person carries at birth, the frequency of clarity and creative flow and the kind of knowing that goes straight to truth without passing through logic first. He discovered that modern life suppresses this frequency systematically beginning around age 7. The comparison, the performance pressure, the relentless measurement against everyone around you, all of it acts on the brain over time and gradually dims what was there at the beginning. He called it the decline effect. He also discovered that the frequency can be reactivated in 7 minutes through a precision-engineered audio track designed specifically for this. I will come back to the full details in part 2, because what comes next here gives it its meaning. Now, the detail in the David story that changes everything. When Samuel asked for David, everyone waited. The prophet waited. The brothers waited. God waited in the sequence of that moment. for the one who was behind. And when David arrived, still carrying the evidence of ordinary invisible labor, God said to Samuel immediately, "Rise and anoint him. This is the one." Not because of how David appeared, because of what had been built in him in the field. When God says, "Drop everything," He is doing what GPS does when your route has moved away from your destination. It does not yell at you. It does not require an explanation of every wrong turn. It simply says, "Recalculating." And for a brief window, the screen goes blank. The old route is no longer active. The new one is still being drawn. And that blank screen is uncomfortable, because the old path at least felt like movement, even when the direction was wrong. That blank screen is where you are right now, and it is not the end of the journey. It is the beginning of the correct one. Now let me address something directly, because it is the reason so many chosen ones stay at the threshold rather than crossing it. There are two voices that speak in the blank screen season, and they sound almost identical from the inside. The first is discernment. It says, "Not yet, be still." The second is fear. It says, "Do not move, stay safe, protect yourself." Both counsel patience. Both use the language of wisdom. But one is rooted in trust of the God who is working, and the other is rooted in self-protection from a risk that feels too large. Discernment feels like solid ground. Fear feels like an exit strategy, wearing the language of wisdom. God is not frustrated with you for not always knowing the difference. He is showing it to you in this message, and He is giving you a way to respond. I call it the sacred interrupt protocol. 3 steps for honoring what God actually means when He says, "Drop everything." The first step is counterintuitive, and I need you to hear it clearly. Pause at your moment of peak momentum, not at your lowest point. Dropping everything when you are already depleted is survival. Dropping everything when you are mid-motion, when something is actually working, that is obedience at a different level entirely. And that level of obedience opens a different category of provision. In your spirit right now, wherever you are, make this decision. I will respond to God's redirect at full strength, not at empty. The second step is to listen for the one specific thing. Drop everything does not mean dismantle your entire life at once. It means locate the one thing God is targeting in this season. Just one. Ask this question silently, right where you are. What is the one thing you are asking me to lay down right now? Let the first thing that rises to the surface be the answer. Do not second guess it. You already know what it is. You have known for a while. The third step is to act within 24 hours. Whatever came to the surface in that moment of asking, honor it within 24 hours. Not because God is impatient, because the kairos window for first response is narrow, and the chosen one who moves within that window arrives somewhere the one who keeps waiting does not. This is not a formula, it is a posture. The chosen one who practices this does not catch up to where they thought they should be. They arrive somewhere better, somewhere they could not have reached by running harder. In the second part of this message, everything we have discussed comes together into the revelation that recontextualizes your entire season. I am going to show you something from the ancient Hebrew that changes the meaning of the word behind forever. I will also come back to the specific tool I mentioned, and I will show you exactly how it connects to everything we have been building here. Every word of part 2 was assembled for where you stand right now. Do not miss it. Let me bring this together. Part 1 showed you the clock. It showed you that the framework you have been using to measure your position, the chronos clock of comparison and sequential time, was never built for where you actually stand. It showed you the David pattern, the way the anointing went looking for the one who was in the field, the way the formation season builds, exactly what the destination requires. And it gave you the protocol for honoring the direction God is issuing right now. But underneath all 3 of those revelations is one truth. And this is the truth that changes the meaning of every season you have walked through, including the longest and the hardest ones. the ones that felt most like being left behind. You have not been behind. You have been placed. Say that again in your own spirit. Not as encouragement, as fact. You have not been behind. You have been placed. Now let me show you where that truth comes from. Not from a modern framework, from a word spoken thousands of years before this moment, in a language that carries weight most translations never fully surface. In the book of Jeremiah, chapter 29, verse 11, God says something that has been quoted millions of times, but the depth of it almost never gets reached. He says, "For I know the plans I have for you, plans to give you a future and a hope." The word future in that verse, in the original Hebrew, is achrit, and achrit does not simply mean what comes after. Achrit means the latter end, the after part, the portion that comes at the back. And in the wisdom tradition of that language, achrit carried a meaning that most modern translations do not capture. The best of something is structurally positioned at the end, not as an afterthought, as the design. When God says He has plans for your achrit, He is not saying the plan will eventually arrive someday when circumstances improve. He is saying your best is positioned at the back, the way a master storyteller positions the revelation at the final chapters of the narrative. Not because the ending is unimportant, because it is the most important, but the reader needs every prior chapter to receive it with full weight. Remove any chapter, and the ending loses something essential. God structured your life with the same architecture. The chapters that felt like nothing were not filler. They were load-bearing. Every one of them was carrying weight toward the achrit. Think about it this way. The greatest mystery never reveals itself in chapter 2. The revelation is always at the end, because everything before it was preparing the reader to receive it. That is not a flaw in the structure. That is the structure doing exactly what it was designed to do. What the world has been calling you being behind was God positioning you at the achrit, not behind the blessing, right beside it, carrying the exact weight of formation that receiving it requires. And this is the destiny that has been preparing not to chase you, not to catch you off guard, but to embrace you, because you are already there. You are already at the achrit. And now I want to say something I hear the Father speaking over your life, and I want you to receive every word of it. What the world called behind, God called positioned. What comparison named too slow, the divine named too precious to rush. What felt like being forgotten was the most intentional placement in your entire story. What looked like others receiving their breakthrough first was simply God protecting yours from the crowd that was not yet ready to honor it. And what you have been calling dangerously behind, God has been calling achrit, the place where everything He designed for you is already waiting. Let every word of that land take a breath and let it settle into the places that have been carrying the weight of that story. Let me tell you about someone, because this pattern does not live only in ancient stories. It lives in lives that look a great deal like yours right now. There was a man who, 8 months ago, had spent 14 years building a career in one specific industry. Within a single quarter, almost everything he had built collapsed. The major clients left. The income stopped. The opportunities he had been approaching for 2 years, the ones that were supposed to finally change the shape of his life, disappeared. By every chronos measurement, he was further back than he had been in over a decade, and everything in him wanted to compensate, to perform hard enough to close the gap before it became permanent. But he had heard something like what you are hearing today, and he did the counterintuitive thing. He applied the protocol. He sat in the blank screen season, and he asked the question, just one question, and what came up was unexpected. The one thing God was asking him to release was not a relationship or a habit. It was the industry itself. 14 years of identity tied to one specific lane. He spent 40 days in intentional stillness, not performing, not producing for an audience, recalibrating. On day 37, a call came from a space he had never thought to enter. He had not reached out to them. They found him. Within 60 days, he had a contract worth more than anything he had built in the 14 years before. He was not behind, he was being positioned, and he proved it in the field before anyone celebrated it from a stage. I share this not as a guarantee for your timeline. God does not work through formulas, and the protocol I gave you is not a promise of a specific outcome on a specific date. I share it as evidence of a pattern, and God's patterns repeat. The recalibration is complete. The screen is no longer blank. The route has been set. And it does not start when you feel more ready or when the circumstances cooperate. The route starts here, with this moment, with this decision to stop measuring yourself by the coordinates of people who were never headed to the same destination as you. You are not on the wrong road. You were never on the wrong road. You were on the only road that leads where you are actually supposed to go. Stay with me. Before this message ends, I am going to speak something over your life, a declaration I believe was placed in this message before you arrived here. Your spirit has been waiting for these words. Do not leave before that moment. Before I share what comes next, let me take just a moment to make sure you are carrying 3 things clearly from everything we have discussed. Not just feeling them, knowing them. The first, you are not behind on God's clock. The measurement you have been using was built for a race you were never entered in. Chronos tells you how long things are taking. Kairos tells you when the moment is ready. God operates on Kairos. Your position on Chronos tells you nothing about your standing on the timeline that actually determines your future. The second, the season you have been in, had a purpose. David was not wasting time in the field. He was being built for what the throne would require of him. Every year in the pasture was load-bearing. The same is true for what you have walked through. You were not falling behind in the hidden season. You were being built in it. The third, drop everything, is a specific command with a specific target. You already asked the question. You already know the one thing. Honor it within 24 hours. The feeling of being dangerously behind was not evidence against your calling. It was the pressure shaping your capacity to receive it. Now, there is something specific I want to share with you. Chosen one. There was a version of you, before the world's systems had done their work on you, that moved at a completely different level of clarity. Not because you were younger or less experienced. Because you were carrying something God placed in you that had not yet been compressed by the weight of comparison, of performance, of the relentless chronos clock measuring your worth by your output. That kind of clarity has a name in neuroscience. It is called the gamma frequency, and it is the God-given brainwave of insight, of creative knowing, of the kind of intelligence that reaches past logic and goes straight to truth. The frequency that children carry at full capacity, and that the world gradually and systematically suppresses, beginning around age 7. A neuroscientist named Dr. Robert Lake spent 34 years studying this specific frequency. What he found was not just how it gets suppressed. He found that it can be reactivated. And he built that discovery into a 7-minute audio track, precision-engineered to bring the brain back into gamma entrainment through a process called brain entrainment. 7 minutes. Headphones on. Eyes closed. That is the entire practice. No special skill. No years of training. The audio does the work. Let me tell you about a woman who reached out after months of working with this track. She had been carrying her calling for over a decade without it fully taking the shape she believed it was meant to. She had the gifts. She had the clarity in brief windows. But sustaining that clarity long enough to translate what she sensed into the life she could see in her spirit felt just beyond reach, no matter how much she sought it. She started using this audio track every morning. 7 minutes. Headphones on, still and receiving. She said within 2 weeks, the clarity was no longer arriving in windows. It had become her baseline. And the opportunities that had been invisible to her before started appearing in her peripheral vision, as if the lights in a long dark room had gradually come back on. That is not coincidence. That is the documented result of decades of research. Studies conducted at MIT, at Princeton and at several other leading research universities have mapped exactly what happens in the brain when the gamma frequency is entrained through precision audio. The cognitive clarity, the creative knowing, the intuitive access to deeper truth, all of it begins to return as the compression of the decline effect reverses. More than 18,000 people have worked with this audio track. Less than 4% have ever asked for it back, which means more than 96% found what they received worth keeping. Now I understand if there is hesitation here, especially in a season where trust does not come easily and resources feel limited. I want to acknowledge that directly. And here is what I want to say. The hard season is exactly when this matters most, because the decline effect does not pause when your circumstances are difficult. If anything, pressure accelerates the compression. The clarity you need most is least available in the season when the pressure is greatest. That is not a coincidence. That is the design of a system that benefits from the chosen one operating below full capacity. The tool that Dr. Robert Lake built to address this is called the Genius Song. He priced it at $39 for those who receive this message. The original price is $49, which is already far less than a single therapy session, far less than a weekend spiritual retreat, far less than any technology that attempts to do what this does. The $39 price is not a promotion. It is a mission decision. His goal was always to reach the chosen ones who are in the middle of their recalibration, not the people who can afford to wait. And the Genius Song comes with 4 additional resources, included free. The Genius Child Audio, a 6-minute track calibrated for younger minds before the decline effect has fully taken hold, so that the generation you are raising does not have to unlearn what the world is teaching them, valued at $19. The classic book, the original text that the film The Secret drew its core principles from, a practical study of the laws behind both spiritual and material reality, valued at $20. The guided visualization, a 22-minute walkthrough across the 4 areas of life where clarity changes everything: your finances, your relationships, your physical well-being, and your sense of purpose, valued at $29. And the 5-habit infographic, the daily practices of the people who sustain gamma activation over the long term, so that what is reactivated stays activated, valued at $12. That is $80 of additional resources, included free with your $39 investment. And the guarantee Dr. Lake built into this is worth understanding clearly. 90 days, no conditions required, no explanation needed. And even if you request a full refund, every one of the 4 bonus resources remains yours to keep. The worst possible outcome is that you receive $80 of value and pay nothing for it. Before you search for this anywhere else, I need to tell you something important. The Genius Song is only available through the specific link in the description below this message. There are imitations in circulation that use similar language, but do not carry the precision frequency sequence Dr. Lake spent 34 years developing. The mechanism is specific. The original is the only version that delivers what the research supports. Use only the link in the description below. If what God has spoken in this message today has confirmed something you already knew in your spirit about who you are and what you are positioned for, the Genius Song is the natural next step. The link is waiting for you below. Now, before I close this message, I want to give you something to hold. If you are somewhere safe to let your eyes close for just a few seconds, let them close. If you cannot, let your mind do what your eyes cannot right now. Picture yourself standing exactly where you are in this moment. Not where you wish you were. Not where you believe you should be by now. Right here. This exact position. And now, picture the space around you beginning to open. Not because you moved or earned or finally figured something out, because what was blocking your view has been removed. The story of being behind, the verdict that was never God's to issue, falls away. And what is left is the actual landscape of your life. And from here, it looks different. The The destination is not as far as it appeared from inside the story of falling behind, because you were never falling behind it. You were being positioned right beside it the entire time. This is not imagination. This is what happens in the spirit when a false verdict is released. The space around your destiny has always been there. It was there the whole time. Your eyes are simply seeing it clearly now. Let that settle into you. Let it be real. You are positioned. You always were. Now let me close this message. You walked in here carrying something heavy. The story of being behind. The weight of the comparisons. The closed doors. The long seasons where you checked your progress against someone else's and came up short. And you stayed. You sat with all of it and received what was prepared for you. That is not a small thing. Every moment of that long season was witnessed. Not one closed door went unseen. Not one night at 2 in the morning when the weight pressed down went unnoticed by the Father. He was watching every moment of it, and he was watching it differently than you were. He was watching it the way someone watches a piece of work that is almost finished. Now let me ask you to do something in your spirit. Picture everything you carried into this message. The story of being behind, the comparisons, the closed doors, every season where you measured yourself and came up short, every moment you questioned whether the calling was real. Picture all of it gathered together, resting in your open hands. Feel the weight of it for one moment, and then, slowly, let your hands fall open. Not because the pain was not real, because it was preparation. And preparation does not need to be carried into the place it was preparing you for. Let it go. It has served its purpose. Now receive this. I hear the Spirit of the Father speaking these words over your life. You are not behind. You are positioned. You are not late. You are on Kairos time. You are not forgotten. You were placed. The acret that God prepared for your life before you arrived in this world is not behind you. It is in front of you, on a road that was built for your coordinates and no one else's. Right now, all across this world, chosen ones who have been carrying the same story are receiving the same word. You are not alone in this recalibration. Someone in your life has gone unusually quiet lately, quieter than their normal. Someone whose expectations for themselves have been shrinking. Someone who has been measuring themselves against people who were never meant to be their standard. Share this message with them today. They need it more than they know how to ask for it. Step into the destiny that has been preparing to embrace you. In the Father's name. Amen. If this message arrived at exactly the right moment in your life, type "chosen" in the comments right now. I want to see you there. If what the Father confirmed in this message resonated with something you already knew in your spirit, take a moment and let that be your agreement. And if you were guided here, and you do not want to miss what comes next, stay close. There is more prepared for you.